Hey guys, it's Mindful Morgan here, and today I wanted to talk about some failed therapy sessions. Not that I want to discourage anybody from therapy, but I definitely want to encourage you to maybe shop around when you're looking for therapists. And maybe kind of give you some of the warning signs that you're maybe seeing a bad therapist or that you just don't click. Because you never know, maybe the first therapist you ever see, you'll just magically connect with, and maybe it'll absolutely suck, which is my experience. So again, not trying to discourage you from seeking therapy. I just want to give you some signs to look out for from therapists so that you know, maybe this therapist isn't right for me. So let's talk about my first therapist. I don't even remember his name, to be honest, so we're gonna assign him a random letter. He's gonna be Z. We're gonna call him Z. So this was at some Christian counseling group or something. I don't know, something my mother found. We basically just kind of picked a therapist based on what they said they I don't know how to describe it. What they list as what they are qualified to counsel you in. And so I found the person who looked the best capable of handling anxiety, and that's what I went with. And I think the mistake that my mother really made was she was expecting me to automatically be better after just a couple of sessions, and it takes a lot more time than that. And in my instance, I did not start feeling better until I took medication. So let's talk about Z. Z was just not a great listener. He'd make some comments sometimes where I'm kind of like, are you even listening to what I'm saying? I don't know. The main reason I started seeing Z was because I was struggling to get a second job after my totally just disastrous experience with my first job. And so the end goal of therapy was to be able to get a job and to be able to actually handle it. And I don't think we did a single thing to work towards that goal. He would talk about my performance anxiety. It's I don't actually have performance anxiety, even though I do have social anxiety / avoidant personality disorder. I feel pretty comfortable when performing. I've had a couple of performances that I feel nervous because I know I'm definitely not prepared for, such as the one I was explaining to Z in my music theory class in high school. We had to write a song and then have it played. So since the piano was the instrument I played, I wrote a piano song and then I had to play it. But the problem was my writing skills were way above my playing skills. So the song I wrote, I would have needed like months to practice to get it down, and I had 1 week. So I was absolutely terrified playing, and I just knew I was going to get judged as being a bad musician, because I couldn't play it right, and my anxiety was too bad to like try and find another piano player and ask them, hey, will you play my song for me during second period? Who would I have asked? I don't know. I wasn't really a very social person. I had a small group of friends, and none who really played piano, so I was kind of on my own there. And so I use that as an example of my anxiety, and Z took that and put that as like the main focus of my anxiety, performance anxiety. Like, no, that's not what I'm trying to do. And he would like talk over me. Like, I was trying to explain how in high school the reason for my depression was because I wasn't getting enough sleep. And so he was like, well, why is the depression continuing? And I'm like, well, you know, it started when I wasn't getting enough sleep. And he goes, yeah, but I think you've caught up on your sleep now. Like, kind of snarky. Like, I don't know, I'm sure he didn't mean it this way, but it felt like extremely rude. Like, if you're a therapist, you're being paid to listen, not to talk over your client, okay? If you're a therapist, you work for your client, not the other way around. Something to keep in mind when seeking therapists. Therapists work for you. You don't work for therapists. So after that experience, I was kind of like, you know what? You're not listening to me. I don't want to see you anymore. So I told my mom, you know, I don't think this is working out. I want to see someone different. And so the next person was Kay. And he was kind of, we knew him kind of because he was connected to the church that I attend. And so whenever members of our congregation had problems, he was like recommended to them. So I start seeing Kay, and Kay had been known to help my dad with depression, and apparently was really good at treating depression. And in my opinion, I think he should stick with what he's good at, because he was not good at treating anxiety. His response to my anxiety was, well, let's just throw you out in the world so that you'll see it's not dangerous and the anxiety will magically go away. Like, I don't know what this guy's credentials were, what made him think he was capable of treating anxiety. And he called it cognitive behavioral therapy. But it was very much action-based. You had to do the action, and that action would change your thoughts. But if you're someone with anxiety, you're not just going to go out and ask for job applications just because your therapist said, hey, I need you to go out and ask for job applications. It'll help your anxiety. No, it won't. I will feel just as anxious asking for job applications after my therapist tells me to as I did before my therapist told me to. The only difference is now I have somebody telling me that I won't die. Like, thanks. I know I'm not gonna die. It's not dying that I'm worrying about. It's completely humiliating myself. Getting into a situation because I had a really difficult time saying no, so I didn't want to get into a bad situation that I couldn't get myself out of, such as filling out job applications and practicing interviews and not wanting to keep the job. And like feeling forced into it because of my anxiety. And so he was like all about exposure, and I don't know what it was about him that maybe it was because he was focused so much on exposure that because of my anxiety I felt like I couldn't let him down. So I tried to act, less anxious than I actually was. Like, I was totally faking recovery just because I couldn't say, hey, this isn't working for me, or no, I can't do that. So if you are feeling that way, that is probably a huge signal that you need medication as well as therapy. So after I was finished seeing my therapist, Kay, my mother was like expecting me to go out and get a job, and it had been about a year that I was seeing him for. And I could not do it. It was too hard for me. I broke down, and my mom was mad at me because she's like, you've been in therapy for a year and you still can't do this? Like, I guess I kind of understand her frustration, but believe me, it was absolutely nothing compared to my frustration. I was frustrated with my mother, I was frustrated with my therapist, and I was mostly frustrated with myself because I wanted to be able to just be a normal human being. But when you have anxiety, that isn't going to happen. And I just wanted some sort of magic cure. And there is no magic cure, so my mother finally said, hey, I think you need to see a psychiatrist. And so I did. And we started out on medication. And it didn't work right away. It took a few medication changes to find something that really helped my anxiety, but my first psychiatrist really encouraged me to seek therapy, which I was not too keen on given my previous experiences. So I kind of reluctantly agreed to see the therapist that worked at the same building she was at, and she was D. So D was just a little bit nicer and a little more kind of empathetic, I guess. And I don't want to sound sexist, but I kind of think that's just what you're going to get with a female therapist versus a male therapist. Like, with therapy, it is totally okay to discriminate, because you need to feel 100% comfortable. And that's the reason that after my experiences with Z and K, I swore I was only going to see female therapists from that point on. because it just hadn't worked out for me. And I do feel less comfortable talking to a man than I do a woman. So I was seeing D, and eventually my anxiety medication started working, and I was feeling good, but I was still struggling in the area of my depression. At this point, my bipolar disorder had not yet been diagnosed. And I had yet to experience my first full-blown hypomanic episode. But I was definitely experiencing the depression, and she kind of seemed to think just because that I got a job that all of a sudden I was cured. There's like confetti, no more depression, which was like not the case. And like I am so bad at seeking help. Like, when it comes to seeking help, do as I say, not as I do, because I did not know how to say, hey, I still feel really depressed. And I had undiagnosed borderline personality disorder, and that caused a lot of relationship tension, just because I wasn't really equipped to handle a relationship. And so basically the common factor there was misunderstanding. I was consistently misunderstanding things, blowing things out of proportion, and just overall I was not really the best of girlfriends. And at this point, I knew that I was borderline, and I knew that I needed a DBT, so I brought it up to her. And so she kind of sits down and goes through the symptoms of borderline personality disorder with me, which I've done in previous videos. Borderline personality disorder symptoms. And she's like, but you don't show any of these symptoms. And I don't know how to say, well, yeah, I do. And then she kind of makes a snarky remark, like, did you self-diagnose yourself with anything else? And that was just, like, that was just pure 100% stigma. D just did not want a borderline patient. I will talk maybe a little bit more about this in another video. I've talked about BPD stigma in past videos too, but basically therapists just don't want to deal with borderline patients. They think they know what borderline is, but consider this: there are 290 different ways to meet the criteria for a BPD diagnosis. So how can you act as if we are all the same when clearly we're different, we're going to have different struggles, each symptom is going to be at a different severity level. We're different, okay? That saying that you can spot a borderline from a mile away, no! That was a bit of a tangent there. But Dee's perceptions about borderline personality disorder did definitely have a negative effect on our therapy sessions, and I tried to explain, well, basically, I'm just very emotional, and I'm not sure exactly what I said. I said I was overly emotional and overly sensitive, so I react to like the smallest thing. And she said, well, you have to be really careful with that because you don't want to scare your girlfriend away. Okay, who says that? Who says that? I was like, I like came home like crying because my therapist was like making stupid remarks like that. Like, yes, therapists are only human. Yes, they're going to make mistakes. But come on. Did you like attend school and study psychology and get a degree? Like, I just don't know. I just don't know. The next session after that, I was really in a bad way. Probably because of what she had said to me the previous session. But she had wanted to meet my girlfriend, so I brought my girlfriend along, and she spent pretty much the whole session, like, talking to my girlfriend when I was, like, at a time where I was really struggling and really needed the help. And I told her, you know, what you said last time really upset me. And she's like, oh, I'm so sorry, I didn't mean it in that way. But yeah, it's always better to not say stupid things than to have to apologize for saying stupid things that you shouldn't have said in the first place. And when I brought up the concept of DBT to her, she said it didn't apply to me. Okay, first of all, DBT applies to literally everyone. Like, I think anyone, mental illness or no, could benefit from DBT, but DBT is designed for people with what's called overwhelming emotions. And while it was designed with borderline specifically in mind, it is for people who experience overwhelming emotions, and I have multiple disorders that cause overwhelming emotions: ADHD, avoidant personality disorder, borderline personality disorder. So after that, I just said, you know what, I'm done here. I need to see a DBT therapist. And so I moved on to therapist number 4. She is Elle. Now, Elle, things started out really good. I explained that I'd been through CBT multiple times, and I felt like I had gotten all that I was going to get out of it, and that I wanted to try more mindfulness-based therapy. And basically, that meant taking deep breaths all the time. Like, I brought one of my DBT workbooks to show her, hoping that maybe she could work through some sections with me. And instead, she just kind of looked at it and kind of repeated what I said, that, like, the work I had already done in my book. And I'm not quite sure what the point was. Like, I feel like the only thing I ever got out of that relationship was deep breathing. I did mention borderline personality disorder to her, and she was a lot more receptive. She allowed me to go through the list of symptoms, and I explained each criteria of borderline personality disorder and how I met it. And she's like, well, yeah, but you don't do such and such. You're not manipulative. She basically had borderline personality disorder confused with narcissistic personality disorder, from my having done a lot of research, so I feel confident in saying that I'm an educated standpoint. And so I tried really hard to talk DBT with her, but all I ever got was, well, yes, this is good, but you need to take that deep breath first. And she kind of made the mistake of seeing anger as like a totally negative emotion. The truth that DBT teaches you is that emotions aren't bad or good, they just are. And it's how you deal with them that can be either bad or good. And so anger is just another emotion that you can either deal with properly or you can deal with poorly. And she basically told me there's absolutely no way to deal with anger. You have to wait until you're not angry anymore. Like, I don't know how that's supposed to happen. I guess she just thought if you take enough deep breaths, you won't be angry anymore. So, I didn't spend very long with her before I decided, okay, this isn't working. I need a real DBT therapist. And so that brings me to my current therapist, S, who I feel like is what I've really needed kind of this whole time. So it took me 5 tries to find a good therapist who I clicked with, who did not give me stigma about borderline personality disorder. Though she hasn't, like, diagnosed me, she listened to me talk about it and has agreed to do DBT with me for it. And because we go through the workbook together, she's able to really get down to, like, the issues that are, like, the really important issues, you know? And she, like, wants to see me every week, which I unfortunately just can't afford, so I see her every other week. And going back to Kay, he's like, well, there's no underlying issues for you to talk about, it's just anxiety. So he didn't want to see me. Like, that's another bad sign if your therapist does not want to see you while you are still clearly struggling. So, but I would just like to end on a hopeful note. Okay, it took me 5 tries to find the right therapist over a few years, but I did, and I'm in DBT now, and it's like a miracle, honestly. I didn't think I would, get to this point that I'm at, where I'm using my DBT skills to avoid arguments with my girlfriend, to kind of hold this perspective about other people. It's like, I'm kind of like a whole different me now because I finally found the right therapy. And so that's just what I want to tell you all, to say that the right therapy is out there, but there are unfortunately therapists that you're not going to click with, or therapists who are just not going to be qualified to deal with you because, like, avoidant personality disorder and borderline personality disorder are huge deals, and they are really, really tough. And I just kind of felt like they didn't want to take the time to work through it with me. They either just wanted to say, well, your anxiety won't kill you, or no, you don't have borderline personality disorder. So be very careful when you're looking for therapists. Just because somebody is recommended to you does not automatically mean they're going to be a good therapist. Excuse me. Just because their info on their website is like just absolutely sparkling and they look like they're going to be the perfect match doesn't mean that they are. You have to keep trying with therapists, because once you do find the right one, it is so, so worth it, and you will know. You will just feel yourself finally beginning to heal the way you want to, and not the way somebody else wants you to. And that is what I feel like I've gained from being with my current therapist. I feel like I'm not being forced into a box of symptoms. I'm just allowed to be me. And we're not concerned about the diagnoses. We're just looking at the symptoms. And we're working together. It feels a lot more like a partnership than it does like I hired you to help me, so fix my problems, you know, because, you know, a therapist can't do that. A therapist can only help you and give you the tools that you need. So this has been a rather long video, as I thought it might, but hopefully it was worth it. If you liked it, give me a thumbs up. If you're not subscribed to me, but you like what I do, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. I talk a lot about mental health, coming from a mental illness sufferer, coming from a place of complete honesty and vulnerability. And my hope is that one day I can change the field of mental illness for the better. So thank you guys for watching. If you got all the way through this video, you are amazing. You are what inspires me to keep on going. So thank you again, and I will see you in the next video.